doing my thing, and then all of a sudden, it wasn't a migraine this time, or a headache.
Mm.
It wasn't a migraine. It was a massive headache yesterday, and then it was just like, dude, you're going to sleep. I'm not
Mm.
sleep. I don't know if you call it sleep, but I had to go back into the ethers, I guess. I don't know. And then I woke up an hour ago.
There's
God. Oh,
there's something really magic about because I know me personally, I never, because obviously I do a little bit of podcasting, and I really struggled to ever, if I wasn't feeling it, cancel.
you
Anyway, we
struggle
do
to
like
catch.
this 2 weekly
Yeah.
thing that I do with a couple of guys, and this last few weeks, I've had a total aversion to social media. Didn't want to do any of it. I've really withdrawn from a lot of stuff in a really, really beautiful way.
Mm.
And I cancelled these guys last week, and it turned out that they weren't really feeling it either, just for that week, and were grateful for it.
Yeah.
And then I feel like there was something in that happening yesterday, because in the past, like if I'm being honest, I might have gotten a little bound up and gone, oh no, it's cancelled. I was already da 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 da. And I simply got up from my desk. I went,
Mm.
sweet. And I went
Yeah.
back to gardening.
Yeah.
Like it was just, I think there was something in there in that. And funnily enough, at about 10:30 in the morning, I was outside doing a few things. And I said to myself, oh, I have a feeling this is going to get postponed. And sure
Yeah.
enough, it did.
This new world, man. It's like
Yeah.
telepathy. Transparency is, I think transparency is in our face.
Mm.
You know, like, but like this telepathy thing, and in the way, here they come.
Uh-oh.
The way that everything is speaking to us,
Mm.
like it, in sequence.
Mm.
It's crazy. Like I didn't start out this morning. I didn't start out like I have. I would say probably for the last 4 weeks.
Mm.
Something came over me 4 weeks ago, and it's like I got out of bed and I was like, I pick up the phone, look at the time, and I put it down, and then I just sit on the edge of the bed and I just start. I'm grateful for being here. I'm grateful for this incarnation. I'm grateful for
Mm.
Morgan. I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for Soulogy. I'm grateful for this. And I just started doing this like 5 or 10 minutes. I didn't know why I started doing it.
Mm.
And everything changed, man. I wouldn't even pick my phone up for an hour and a half, 2 hours, you know? I mean, because that's a big part of our work, but it's also a part of something else, right? And
Absolutely.
so then like, I think it was 2 nights ago because I mean, like, I don't have any concept of time. So I'm like staying up and the sun comes up most of the time. And I start watching this YouTube video. I like to check stuff out, right? You know, like not bounce around like on the news feed, but like actually look for something that might be useful. So I saw this 5 minute and 55 second uh, video from a neuroscientist. And I posted it on Facebook. In fact, I just watched it a while ago because it freaked me out. So what it was he was talking about dopamine in our brain. And he was saying that we go from pleasure, for lack of a better word, pain. Okay, pleasure, pain. There's like a balance. It's like a seesaw. And what happens is, and he used the example of addictions, which are kind of an extreme example, but he said it can be anything. It can be looking at your phone.
Mm.
And he started to talk about how these things create dopamine. They stimulate dopamine, but that at some point the dopamine wears out and it has to go back to the other side of the pendulum. And so he goes on to talk about it, and he was just basically saying that he's experimenting with a group of 25, or I don't remember, young people. And what did he call it? He called it I'm going to just have to use my own words, like a conscious restriction. Just like in his own life, he's using it 25 times a day. 25 times a day, when he has the urge to go do something, he just holds off. Could be going to the refrigerator to get a glass of water. It could be going to get a cigarette. It could be whatever, right? And how it's allowing this trade-off to stay in balance. Now, the best example of the whole thing was he was talking about the 4 cycles of sleep. And he says the last cycle is like the last quarter of your sleep is when we put our emotional stuff into the proper place. Like all the stuff that you experience, you relive it, and I forget what the term he used, emotional something, but he talked about putting it in the right shelf. And so that when we wake up, he said it's extremely important that if we, for example, pick up our phone and start going down the news feed or going down TikTok, we're getting all this different context, like boom, 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 boom. And you don't, and these are his exact words, which I thought was interesting. He says, you don't have time to learn or anchor the download. You don't have, because what happens is that's the time when you get your ideas and stuff like that, the good information. But if we go into the phone situation right away, we negate it. And that was really interesting because he was saying from a neuroplasticity standpoint that we're not able, we short circuit everything. And then the last thing that he said that I thought was really interesting, he said, it used to be you go from a room to another room, or you go from a meadow to into the forest. So there's like, a little time and a pace of this context of experience, then that context. But that when we're going down the news feed or going through TikTok, it's like boom, 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 boom. And it's like overload. So like what you're talking about with what happened with you, and I can see how that's happening to really everyone. Like whether we like it or not, this ship's getting slowed down, kind of thing. And but I think there's been a lot of that going on, among other things. This last 3 or 4 weeks has been blistering, and even the last week, just watching everybody not only going through. Mine's pretty much been either just okay, or it's been a couple of episodes like yesterday and today of physical. Hey, you need to go to sleep, or hey, you're getting a headache, you need to lay down. But not only are people, everywhere I look, people are talking about it, but they're being transparent about it, which I think is really cool. To just say, I'm having it. Look, I've been having a rough last few days, and everywhere I look, it's like that. Yeah.
And you know what else too? Like, it's a thing when guys are doing it. Like we've got a group, and we got, there's a guy in there, beautiful guy, Tommy, and he opened up about what's been going on in his life, and he was a bit reluctant at first to open up, but he came out with it anyway in a group of men, women, the whole lot. That he'd been having a rough time of it. And I have actually seen that, but interestingly for myself, it's been the opposite, because I have just I have completely withdrawn from everything. I've become a bit of a hermit. And I'm in a really interesting phase personally where I'm moving back towards simplicity. So like I'm enjoying, for the first time in ages, catching up on all the gardening. Like I said, I was doing, I don't know if I said it while we were already live, but I've been watching my little grass seedlings, millimeter by millimeter coming out of the ground so that the lawn will be nice. And, in the past, I've looked at people that spend all this time on their lawn, and I've sort of gone, oh, why would you waste your time on your lawn? There's all this magic to life. And, I can go and be sitting on my laptop or my phone, learning something new, reading about this, watching Todd Medina. Not that I wouldn't recommend that highly, but now I'm pulling away from all that. And I am going to these more apparently mundane aspects of life and really enjoying it.
Well, that goes along with what this dude was talking about too, because it's overstimulation. Like to go down the TikTok thing is, in the way he was talking about, is an overstimulation. We do these things that are pleasure that actually to get the play, and it creates dopamine, but you can only create so much. The same would be like for a pill. Say you're taking Adderall for specific to study, but then you got to take more, and then you take more, and then and we've all can relate to this. The reason I watched this video again a while ago is because I had an interesting experience this morning, because it was the first morning it was the first morning in 3 or 4 weeks that I didn't do the gratitude thing, right? Which could just be me, just laying in bed and just being in like a meditative state. It doesn't have to necessarily be staying these gratitude affirmations. But so what happened was, and again, I'm sleeping till typically, like say I might sleep from like 6, 7, 8 in the morning till maybe noon, 4 to 6 hours maybe, which is fine. But as I was coming out, I guess it was probably like 11 o'clock or something my time, and I was in that last mode of sleep. And I usually turn my phone off, but for some reason I didn't last night, and it kept going ding, ding, ding. And this is transparency, and I won't mention any names.
Yeah.
Well, 2 friends of mine had put me and Morgan in one of those Facebook message groups, and there was like 6 or 7 dings, and I'm half in, half out, and I finally pick it up, and I look at it. What the hell is this? And it's this group message thing. And the last one was Morgan telling our friend, "Hey, can you take me off of this? I'm trying to sleep." And I was like, "Oh, that's what that was." But what the point was is I went back to sleep, and that was that period where you're shelving in the proper place your emotional experience, right? So that when you wake up, it'll be in the proper perspective. He gives the example of, like, say you see somebody on your Twitter makes a comment and triggers you right before you go to sleep. If you don't get that thoroughly shelved in the right place, you're going to wake up and you're going to still be, kind of, it's going to be on your mind. It's going to be hanging there, as opposed to it having the right perspective. So what ended up happening was I woke up because I really didn't go back to sleep. I picked my phone up, which was the point. And the first message I get is from one of the people that was in the group that said, why did you block my friend from Facebook? And I'm like, what are you talking about? So then I see another note from the other guy, and he's like, why did you block me? And I turned on my voice message, and I said to the first guy, the one that I supposedly blocked, which I didn't. And I was like, listen, man, I didn't block you, dude. I don't know what you're talking about, and my voice started to get a little bit loud. And it was like, dude, I love you, man. I invited you on the show, because I've been just working with people that are sending, requests. And I said, chill. So then I went to the next one, and I started saying this message to this person, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Now my voice is getting loud and loud, and I've clicked the voice message. I thought, oh, wait a minute. I had enough wherewithal to click delete. But then I did a second one, and then I did a third one, and then I did a fourth one, and I kept clicking them. No, I need to, like, be cool here, like I knew that the devil had me by the tail, right? And so finally, the last one, it was still pretty lit, and I said, I said, okay, things. And then at the very end, I said, get your shit together. So it was about 20, 30 minutes later, I realized I'd got sucked in, and that information came to me. So then I sat down and I sent them both a voice message. I said, look, man, I apologize for if I came off too charged. Boom, that's it. Right? No big deal. But that's my point, is like, we've gone from unconscious creators. We all know this. We can talk about, oh, well, we were tricked, and we consented through being duped, and whatever. But now we're conscious, and it's the little things that make the big collective experience, and we're doing it. We're doing it in fits and spurts, but it's getting smoother. I really believe it is, especially with this transparency that you're seeing out there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's good to know that the social media thing and the messages get you too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the only one, because I mean, I have my moments. Like even my feed is hilarious. Like you'll see the days where I get sucked in with the news and the stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
it'd be hilarious. Like it's just I'll probably look back on it next year when all the memories come back, and I'm just going to giggle at myself. It's going to be hilarious.
It teaches you a lot. You go back and look at your news feed. Go back in time, and I actually did this last night. You go back in time, and you can see that. You can see that. And then the other thing too, I stopped commenting 3 years ago. Like even if it was like, "Hey, thank you," or I just stopped because I couldn't comment on the good things without commenting on the contradictory things.
Yeah.
So I figured, okay, well, I'm just not going to do it at all. But as a perfect example of what you're talking about, when I woke up this morning and I got sucked in, I went. I had I put up like 50 posts a day in Soulogy group, and I had this one, and it didn't even. It was just one of these things, and people. I look for the day when we can put up posts and nobody comments at all. And if you want to say something, as let's just say in respect to this post, say you put out, and I see it, and it's a catalyst of some sort for me. You can call it a trigger, or you can call it inspiration. That I can go make my own post, and I'm speaking kind of energetically, but literally. So this beautiful lady, I don't know her, but she was very polite, but she basically said from what I wrote that, hey, it in so many words, and I'm not throwing light at this at all. It was very nice. It's about Jesus, this whole thing about we're gods and goddesses. And I know what it was about. It was about, because I said basically, I don't know the post, but I open my heart to everything, like everything. And I have for the last 5 years, dark or light, I don't see it that way. And she goes, well, you got to be careful about what you bring in because it could be something bad. And I said, there is no bad, in my opinion. Now, the point is now I'm engaged in this egoic, and I'm just as guilty, in this egoic exchange that's really a fruitless conversation and flow of energy. It's not it's not staying in my own lane. It's not, I got to speak my truth. Well, when I put the post up, that was my truth. I don't need to comment after that. And certainly comment as you want on it. But to go back and forth on who's right, that no longer is an open discussion. That is a debate. And we're moving out of that. And I think it's just these little things, like you're talking about being in the garden. You're learning more than you know, watching it grow centimeter by centimeter. I mean, there's so much there.
Absolutely. And I'm sort of at the stage. So look, I went through my process starting like 2 years ago, and now, you go through a stage where you're cramming, learning from a very conventional standpoint. And I'm at this stage where I'm like, I don't really know that stuff because I only read about it. I didn't experience it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that consuming content as such is becoming somewhat redundant now for me. And I'm trying to create space to experience rather than consume.
Yeah.
Because all the stuff I need will come through anyway. Like I don't need to be worrying about galactic beings that I have no real connection to, yada yada yada, watching the YouTube videos and stuff. That's fine for some people and that's all cool. But for me, it's about actually experiencing things as I'm supposed to experiencing them and evolving through experience rather than learning in a conventional sense, right?
Yeah, I like that. That's like what this neurobiologist was talking about. It's the same thing. what you're saying, uh, because you can't you okay. So he even said there. He said, I don't know anything. I'm not going to speak of enlightenment because I don't know what that is. That's what he said. And then he
Yeah.
said, and then he went on to talk about his personal experiment of consciously restricting just as an experiment, just as an experience. What if I don't go do this right this moment? What if I don't go do that right this moment? So he's actually doing what you're talking about, which is creating the space for the to experience, because that is the teacher. I mean, how many people have pointed out over the years, I can tell you whatever I can tell you till I'm blue in the face.
Mm.
But until you experience it, that's where the real personal knowledge comes, right? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like too, like sort of learning stuff through external sources is clouding the things that I've experienced. You know, those experiences I've had that are like pow, you know, magic, that left me with no choice but to awaken, and start to question things. But they can get dulled
Yeah.
when you are consuming too much information, because particularly with me, I feel like there's a information in, information out thing that goes on, and I, you know, so I've probably forgotten more than I
Yeah.
remember, and more than I've ever known. It's interesting. It just sort of, it feels like it gets replaced and it churns over. So the less that I'm taking in that way, the more I can just embrace and, I guess, hang on to experiences I've had as my experience.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great point. Both in things that we uh that like a book we read or a video we watch, or like you're talking about, both in that respect and also those downloads, which
Mm.
is not the greatest word, right? I mean, what is that? I mean, who knows? Whatever that is, but that again, if we're not overloading ourselves and we're in that space you're talking about being in the garden, then what we need, I would think, what we need comes to us when we need it,
Mm.
rather than trying to figure shit out. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
absolutely. Absolutely. It does come to it's funny too, because you mentioned the guy before in the video mentioning enlightenment. And I had the quote, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After
Mhm.
enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. And there was something in that, and I kept hearing it about 2 weeks ago. And there's something, I knew there was something in it. And that's sort of what also started directing me to starting to, because I would put off, like, my yards are a schmozzle right now, and I'm just catching up, because for the last 2 years I've been like, all right, mow the lawn so I can, sit in meditation and go deeper and this, that, and the other. So they've all become completely neglected.
Yeah.
But having that come in sort of sent me on that path, and it's all part of the same thing. It's all, yeah.
Yeah. True. I miss
It's just,
gardening. Uh,
it's a cool space to be in. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know how you'd bloody get time with all these.
Mm.
I mean, when we moved the rescheduled yesterday,
Yeah.
I was talking to a mate, and I said, "You have no idea what it's like." Like I did, World Unity Week. You were on,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Cosmic Gateway room,
Yeah.
so I actually did the masculine room on that thing, and I did 12 hours of programming a day for 4 days
That's
in the middle
insane.
of the night, my time. Yeah, it
12
nearly
hours.
killed me.
12 hours straight?
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
gosh.
There was a
That's
couple of days where I got a break. I had this vision that we could run for 24 hours, Todd. I mean,
I
like,
have this
that's
vision
a
that we
rookie
run
error.
24 hours and never stop for the rest of the day. Yeah. I've been working
Yeah,
on
you'll
that
probably be a bit more
for 3 years.
strategic and clever than I
No,
was,
I'm still at 0.
you know?
I was
But,
thinking like,
so I mean, I got a little glimpse of what it's like to produce so much stuff. And I was talking to a mate about it, and I said, "You don't appreciate." I can't remember where I was going. There you go. I got lost.
Oh no, I think you were
Yeah.
talking about just going on a lot, going
Yeah.
on. Oh, when I canceled yesterday, when I rescheduled yesterday.
Yeah, but I can't remember why I said that. There
Well,
was a method to the madness, but
yeah,
that's all
that's
right.
okay. That's part of what's
It's cool.
happening here. Yeah,
Whatevs.
but it's the body things. I was thinking about that too in the last hour because I woke up an hour before this show, and I'm sitting on the couch. I got to watch that video. It's 5 minutes 55 seconds,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking about things, and I'm also sitting there in that state that this guy's talking about. Now, I wasn't doing gratitude. I was just sitting there, and I was going, "Wow, I just had this this sequential lucid dream of, and I was looking at all the people that were in it. There was like 7 or 8 people, some from my boyhood, and Morgan. There was just all these different people, and I was like, wow, this is trippy. And I was following the whole thing,
Mm.
and so that in itself to me was telling me something. But in terms of like what was I getting, what did I get anything? I wasn't like striving to understand. I was just like letting it kind of replay in
Mm.
my head.
Mm.
And I knew there was something good about that. But to your point, the way whether you're someone like me who's trying to do 3 shows a day or something, or whatever it is that we do or have been doing, there is this thing that's happening to all of us, which has to do with the fading away of time and linear, and also this. I mean, this last few days since the 10th, or maybe even slightly before the 10th, has just been massive,
Mm.
massive, on the body. And the body is really becoming the community. I mean, it's the everything, right?
Mm.
I mean, and it's not obviously just not just the physical body, but it's the thoughts that come from the body, the original thought of the body. I mean, it's the different layers of the body. But it's like, wow, my body earlier, just to back up a little bit, like I said, I had started my day. I finally got my balance, and I'm doing my thing. And man, I just started hearing this loud tone. My heart started doing some weird stuff. I started feeling sick. Now, this isn't out of the ordinary for people these days. I'm thinking, oh, and I lay on the couch, and I got a blanket, and I got into the blanket, and I surrender. I surrender. And it's like, I got you, man. Like it was like telling me, hey, sit your ass down and just let this integrate, kind of thing. So there's a lot of that going on. So all these things are changing what, we talk about, we want to go back to normal. Well, I think normal we're not even clear on what normal was. We forgot. Our memories got swiped. Normal
Yeah.
is the soul. Normal is the free movement of the soul, the free flow of the soul.
Mm.
So but again, I see a lot of people. I see people who have been out there, and thank you for that, who have been out there kind of, let's just say, leading the way, or more public personas, and boldly, going, forth with what they receive, going real quiet, and also fluctuating uh, quite a bit, and then going quiet, or whatever. But what I'm
Mm.
seeing that's really making me feel good is all of these people, and I'm talking a massive number of people who never do a video, who will make comments and sometimes don't even make comments, but through their comments and through their energy, they have been holding space, and they're like, hey, we got this, you know we like, kind of like your friend in that men's group. Hey, I'm
Yeah.
going through some shit, but we got this, right? Like, I mean, I can feel it, and it feels good because it's coming from that, let's just call it that silent or quiet minority
Mm.
that's really holding us up. It's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely like a silent power.
Yeah.
And there's power in that silence. Like even a lot of the people that consume these, they'll watch this conversation, right?
Hmm.
Um, and they feel that it's somehow. I try to explain this to people through the stuff that I do. They view themselves as external to this conversation, but they're not.
Right.
They're an integral part of it. Like whether it's through a comment or simply just watching, we're all there's an exchange going on, particularly when you're doing it live. Like I don't feel there's a separation. And I mean, I would certainly not be able to do any of the stuff that I do without those people. Like, and I owe them a deep, deep debt of gratitude.
That's true. That's absolutely true. I mean, I remember watching Abraham Hicks a couple years ago, and she was talking about the vortex. She talks a lot about the vortex. I haven't watched a lot of her stuff, but I've been exposed, and it just anchored in my head because, and from that point on, I was saying, I have said many times, we're in a vortex right now. We're in a vortex within a vortex within a vortex within a vortex, right? But in this moment, so it's everybody watching live. It's everybody watching because it's non-linear on replay. No matter how far down the linear timeline it is, everybody's here, and that energy is creating the whole thing. And I've watched this happen over and over and over and over again. I mean, absolutely watched it shift, and it's wordless. Sometimes there's a comment made, and somebody will say this or say that, but I mean, it is what it is. And you're right; it's absolutely equal. There's no question about it. Everyone's an equal part, and that's not some woo-woo cliche either. That's the truth.
No. Well, actually, it's interesting too because you spoke to Antoinette earlier in the week.
Oh wow, she was something. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually. She mentioned the group. I'm in the group. We've got a little group that we we talk in anyway. So I'd had this situation right where a woman from England shared a story of her abuse, a very horrific situation, and it triggered something in me. Like it was one of the most profound posts I've ever written. Like it was beautiful yet tragic yet inspiring. It was everything all in one. And then about a week later, we were having a Zoom call, and Antoinette shared her story, as she did with you.
Yeah.
And that triggered something again. And then the three other women in the group afterwards shared their story in the chat for everyone to see. And this was all in a very short space of time. And then yet again triggered certain things in me because I have some certain emotions towards that I'm working out what to do with. But that inspired me to do a podcast with three other men discussing it from our perspective in terms of how does the masculine respond to abuse. I mean, I've got daughters, I've got a wife, I've got sisters, I'm a human being. And I feel a sense of responsibility, whether wrong or right, for these things that are happening. So we had this conversation triggered by this first woman, then Antoinette obviously did her bit and triggered the whole thing. And then we had our conversation, and then three women in the chat in our live conversation shared their story. One of them shared it for the first time she'd ever done it.
Wow.
And she said that was incredibly healing. So these seemingly small things that happen, which Antoinette, when she did that in the group, I don't think she realized. I know personally it was a big thing, but I don't think she realized that out of that would blossom a flower that was a catalyst for a lot of healing in other people and an ongoing conversation where 4 weeks down the track, I'm still thinking about that conversation and, what moving forward. Because I know within me, when we talk about these things, I feel a sense of obligation to act to help stop this stuff, for better or for worse. Maybe it's not my role, but I feel that way. So I still don't know what's going to come out of the words she shared.
Right.
In what was, apart from personally, but in a broader perspective, she didn't realize how big that moment was going to be. It was probably seemingly small in the broad scheme of things, but it's exploding, and then now she's been talking to you about it coincidentally.
Yeah.
You know? And
Well,
we know
I
there's
mean,
no coincidences.
exactly. And that's the whole paradox. We think it's these big things, but it's not. It's these little things. And I was given the analogy the other day, like a pyramid. We think that, let's say that this reality that we've all thought was the end all cure all, uh, is a pyramid. And we're trying to restore, remodel, reface the pyramid. Yet it's never worked throughout our history. You just go from one president to another, or you go from one pope to another, or you go from one dogma to another, and it's the bricks.
Yeah.
You transform the bricks, and then that transforms the realm, or whatever the case is. But the other thing too about what you're talking about, which we've been blessed to experience this over 10 years at Soulogy. First, less knowingly, I think more of it came to the forefront, not just unique to, but when Morgan brought up in August, hey, let's do the hero's journey. Then, a few weeks go by, and we were talking, I'm like, I realize now that Soulogy's always been the hero's journey. But what is that? It's a lot bigger than, it's a frequency. So it's a lot bigger than just the story, although that's the basis. It's the actual frequency of what's being shared. And Antoinette is a perfect example, because there's more, absolutely more truth in that example, which again, we've seen many, many times here, of somebody speaking from, that level of vulnerability, right? Like, I picked up on it the other day, like authenticity leads to vulnerability. Like if you're going to be authentic with intention, you're going to find yourself in a space to be vulnerable. And then you have a choice. And if you take that on, then it becomes transparent. And then from transparency comes true transformation, right? Like, so when she starts to talk about what she was talking about, to include her recollections of past lives when she was the perpetrator. Now, this is a person who was obviously, and I believe that was her that said that, right?
Yeah.
But my point is there you can't get a higher truth. You could have the Dalai Lama up here, taking us through the steps of enlightenment, and he could be as sincere and well intended as possible, but there would not be a higher truth frequency than someone like Antoinette or any of us crossing that bridge from vulnerability to transparency and telling our story. It's not about the content or the instructional element. It's about the frequency and example of, what I always say to myself, it's me going, hey, I don't have my shit together. This is my story. It's not about having my shit together. It's just about my story. You know what I mean? It's just that. It's just how I feel in this moment, or whatever the case is,
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a great example of what you're talking about. And you actually took us deeper, because I didn't know all that.
Yeah. It's you know what, you talk about our story. So we often, and I don't know whether you've experienced this, but I experienced, particularly during World Unity Week, interviewing people I didn't know.
Yeah.
There were some people that came with an agenda. So they had to have knowledge to share.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't realize that all they had, that your own story, that's all there is. Like, that's where the magic is. That's where the really good stuff is. Like, it's that simple. Like, people think it's mundane. I don't share anything other than my own story. I have nothing to teach anyone.
Yeah.
There's nothing there.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to tell you how to do anything, how to be, give you nice words that put you on the path and fix your life. I'm not that dude. And really, in essence, nobody is. You just share stories.
Yeah. I just went through that. I'm pretty sensitive to the metrics and stuff. I can, because I've been doing it so long, but I just went through that. And again, I'm being transparent. This isn't that, I'm not naming names, and I'm not judging anything. I'm just telling my story.
Yeah.
So I have this guest come on, and I kind of knew it was coming. And I understand these folks that get, as best I can, they get these huge downloads of specific, of a high and unique specificity, and how almost like a message of everybody needs to know this. It applies to everybody, kind of thing.
Mm.
And because it's such a high frequency transmission that usually shows up, because there is heart there, okay? A lot of people who maybe don't experience that type of thing latch onto it. Anyway, so the bottom line was the metrics showed that there was a huge engagement. I asked 3 questions. I never
Wow.
got an answer.
Yeah.
I've probably said 17 words the whole show, which is not typically, but, and then I noticed that there was a short story length comment on one of the platforms, which was basically marketing, which was basically this agenda frequency. And I'm not knocking this. I'm just saying that there's a couple of interesting observations. One, I still see the evolution of it, from that complexity to the simplicity that you talk about, and Antoinette, and you represent. But I also see that in this collaboration, there was frequencies coming through that it didn't even matter what this person was talking about. People were getting lit from it. So I respect that as well. So there's an evolution happening. I mean, I could break out into light language or ancient song or something, and it would connect or catalyze certain people, and some not, just like maybe this conversation does or doesn't. But I still feel that the most powerful, and I've been saying this for you, not because I'm smart, because I've done 3,000 shows, that the most powerful transmissions, downloads, channelings, and activations we can have are just simply 2 people talking.
Yeah.
With no agenda, or at least no conscious agenda, really listening. And we're all learning to listen, even if we think we're great listeners. I'm sorry.
I've
We're
got a
all,
wife. She
what I
she
mean?
knows I'm not a great listener.
Yeah. Well, that's the curse of being in a masculine body. I mean, we're coming from a different place. I mean, how can you be a listener when you've had the mic for thousands of years? I mean, and they've not had a choice. But I mean, again, it's just a conversation. It's simply a conversation. And to me, that speaks to it speaks to our perceived smallness of ourselves. And back to your point, the little things that we can do and share that are actually the biggest fucking things in the universe.
Yeah. Before I while I was getting ready, and I just sat down here and I was waiting for you to log on, I had this image in my head because I had nothing to share. Like I was just like, yeah, we're going to talk, whatever. And I had this picture in my head that we go, all right, what are we going to talk about? And we just go, well, we've got nothing, so we'll just stare at each other.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what would happen if that happened? It's half likely that would touch someone deeply. There'd be a message there going, oh my goodness, I can't believe you did that. That was fantastic. And that's just how it works.
You know what? And they'll pick up on it. We've had moments where, I'm trying to think the last one. One of them is a country mate of yours, Melina Ferguson.
Mm-hmm.
And we've probably done 10, 12 shows together over the years. And there's something about our conversations. And obviously it has a lot to do with her frequency, but there'll be these moments I can't explain it, but we'll be talking like this. And then there'll just be these moments of just like a minute or a minute and a half where nothing's said. And so you're right. People were getting something from that, right? I mean, they understand it. I'll give you an example. I actually had a guy do this to me. So we had this guy come into our field probably a year ago. And again, I'm not judging. I'm just telling you my experience, right? And so he comes in the field, and he kind of into our field in kind of a, I don't want to say it like a big public way, but it was not, you know, small. And so things go along a little bit, and we're talking about agenda here, right? So he says, I'm gonna come on your show. I get on the show. He had headphones on, and he never said a fucking word for an hour.
Oh.
Never said a word. Now, when I realized what he was doing because of the telepathy, I thought, okay. So I thought, well, what am I going to do here? And so I went through the whole hour. I spoke a little bit, you know. I don't know what I did. It was just off spontaneous and off the cuff or whatever. But I think I read a poem he wrote, but it was interesting because afterward, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. And what I mean by that was like the energetics of it didn't stick because there was agenda, right? And I'm not saying that just for my own space. Many people wrote me like, and that's not to say some people were like, oh wow, that's different. But most of it was like, hey man, this is not cool. That was kind of like, you know, disrespectful or whatever they said. And that's not the point. I'm not trying to say, oh, I was right, he was. That's not the point. The point is that the frequency came through. The truth frequency comes through, spoken words or not. And I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I guess our evolution is to really, you know, some people will say, oh, it's going to be straight telepathy, and maybe it is, but I think that we're in a different realm that's never been experienced before. So it could be that maybe there's few words, but they're all in alignment with transparency, you know, which is telepathy, pure telepathy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's like, I mean, I've had conversations with people like that where I haven't got a word in edgeways, but then sometimes I do. And either way, it seems to just work the way it's supposed to work at the time, because, you know, you do get those conversations that you go, it wasn't really aligned, and you record it and you put it out there. But there's a reason that had to happen as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I had that with a lovely lady. Yet, as you say, you won't name names, but she came on with the agenda. You could tell she'd gone through the whole online marketing, got caught up in that world, and and I've got to say this is my message. I've practiced my elevator pitch, and off I go. And it was literally, I like, you know, unable to get a word in to say, all right, well, we might wind it up. So it went for like an hour and a half and all of that. And I actually debated about putting it up, but I ended up just doing it anyway. And, but I mean, I learned a heck of a lot from it as well. So, I mean, perhaps that just came in. Maybe it's not even her. Maybe it's just there to teach me something. It was in the early days of putting stuff out. So,
well, I think that's always the approach. But to me, that's got to be the only approach. It is, you know, it is for me, which means like I've been you know, that big me, little me, and that is me has been having this conversation or understanding or what, I don't know what you call it, but which is it does well. Today was a perfect example with those two people that I sent voice messages to. See, and it wasn't a violation. It was just another epiphany through experience, which was, it doesn't matter what is presented to me, what comes to me. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It's just energy with a face on it. And it's on me what happens from there. This is a quantum field. What I think, what I say, what I do is going to create my experience, which then is combined with your, you know, and that's what we experience collectively. So I could not take back the voice messages I sent to them, but I could call back and apologize
Mm.
without making excuses. So that's kind of an alt control delete. Now, it's interesting because afterwards I saw a post that one of them put up. And
Mm.
again, I'm saying this from the highest reverence. And to your point, it's about me. And they put up a post and they said, "Hey, this is going on. This is how it happened because they had said to me, Facebook removed this person from you then."
Mm.
And I said, well, that's bullshit. I've been on Facebook 10 years. That's never happened. But how do I know? How do I know?
Mm.
So my point is that all I could do was all control delete, say, I apologize for my uh, projection towards you. And that's it. That's the only point. Now, what happens? There are two streams that are going to go off and do their two things.
Mm.
But when I saw the post, that's when I got the epiphany. I went, okay, so they're running with that narrative. That's not about me. I'll just let that go.
Mm.
And to me, that was a really good lesson or epiphany that maybe I won't go there again. I mean, I could wake up tomorrow morning with get interrupted. I don't know, but the whole point is, you're right. And again, to put it in the context of doing these shows, I can't
Yeah.
tell you. I don't do it anymore. I can't tell you how many times Morgan sets up the schedule, and I'd be like, because I'd have past experience with a person, I'd be like, man, I don't want to do that show, da, 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 da. But I always understood that she has this ability or strength to create the frequency in her communion with infinite intelligence. Like, it just
Mm.
happens. I can give a bunch of examples.
Mm.
Mine is, you show up and whatever's presented in front of you, you're to create an equilibrium to the best of your ability, right?
Mm.
Without getting your so I would say to her, I don't want to do that show. They want to do the, and then I would get off the show and go, that was a great show,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then the opposite, and the same goes for, like, you hear people talk about post. You put up a post and you think that you just you think you just walked up the mountain and the holy bush went on fire and the universe handed you the 10 commandments, right? And you put up this post and 6 people hit it.
Yeah.
And then you'll put up another one that's like 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 some brain fart,
Yeah.
and 1,000 people latch onto it. So there we go with the paradox, right? I mean, and to your point too, every bit of it's relevant.
Yeah.
Every bit of it is, or it wouldn't have
Absolutely.
happened. Just like every
Yeah.
thought is, whether it's something implanted in us or not,
Mm.
it's there for a reason, and it's to be seen.
Mm. I had that with a guy. He was connected to me and by someone else, and so I just went with it. And he was an author, and his book had a really cool title, and I'm like, oh yeah, this sounds great. I'll order the book. We'll organize an interview. It'll be epic. And then I read the book and started going through his stuff, and I'm like, oh my goodness, we're opposite, because I'm a pretty simple, like, we'd call me, I'm a Westie from Western Sydney. You know, I haven't got loads of money. I'm not highly educated in a conventional sense, Anyway, he's a highly educated poet, um, you know, used to the finer things in life, that sort of thing. And I'm like, how the heck am I going to interview this guy? And I wanted so badly to pull out of it, but I didn't. And we got together, and gee whiz, maybe if I had to pick one, it'd be close to the best conversations I've had. And we ended up doing a second one a few days later. And it was just incredible. And like I say, we had seemingly nothing in common. And it just was, yeah, magic again.
Well, I think it's the power of the polarity.
Yeah.
You know, that's been part of what I mean. There's obviously people I get on with you. I could talk for hours. We could just sit here. It's just like we're sitting outside in your backyard, and we got through working on your yard, right? I mean, you know, and
Yeah.
there's that. But it's the you're right. I mean, I remember early on. I mean, I'm talking like way back when I really, was very wet behind the ears. A few hundred into it. And this lady came on, and we've probably done 10 shows together. I haven't done one with her in maybe almost a year, but so she came on, very well known. I didn't know. I didn't know much about these circles, to be honest with you. We just
Yeah.
started from scratch, and but anyway, Morgan found her or something or whatever, and she came on, and immediately within the first 2 minutes, my antenna went up, and I thought, oh wow, this is something that I've seen a little bit of. This person's here to uh it's like a tele summit, you know
Yeah.
like and not that they don't have skills and they don't have
Mm.
connection and all that, but it was just not something that we were familiar with. So being a Sagittarius and not always controlling my mouth, I blurted out. I blurted out. Well, I don't remember exactly how I said it, but I said something like, "Well, we don't do the telesummit thing," and you could just see the shock on her face. She just went like, "Oh my God, what do we do?" And then I picked up on, "Oh my God, I just put her in this spot," and so we ended up, like you said, we ended up having this novel, this newness that we actually were able to extrapolate into, a dozen more shows. So you're right.
That's brilliant.
Yeah,
Isn't that fantastic?
yeah, it is. I
Yeah.
mean, it is, and it isn't always comfortable. Um,
No.
I think that the whole polarity thing uh, has caused us a tremendous amount of pain
Yeah.
and dissension and division and separation and egoic bullshit.
Mm.
But I'm a big believer that pain is our friend. Pain is the dark love. And I
Mm.
think as time goes on, it's our differences that we can measure, or it's our perception or our outlook, our perspective on the differences that we may have with another that we'll be able to gauge ourselves on in terms of humility and in terms of unification. Like,
Yeah.
and again, it's that paradox. We're all one, but we're all different.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like the paradox is the 0 point, but from the
Mm.
human only level of comprehension, you can't make any sense of it. But we are not only human, we are
Yeah.
multidimensional souls, and this is a hell of a ride. And I think it's getting real exciting. You know,
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I've never been, I don't know, I walk around with this level of excitement too now. Like, we're in Australia here. I know everyone's aware of the situation. It's not easy. I'm facing a heck of a lot of challenges myself, but there's just this underlying pit of your stomach excitement, like you're about to, you're on the roller coaster, where yeah, it's great. But just to talk, just to touch a little bit on what do you think we need to get to a point, because obviously you're in that conversation with that woman, you said what she needed to hear, and she was big enough to hear it and then move past it, because that conversation could have gone downhill very quickly. And is that where we need to get to, a place where, because I love, for instance, I take criticism. I like to think I take criticism quite well. So I like to have someone else's perspective on me to say something that a so-called polite person might not say,
Mm-hmm.
because I think we need to hear these things. So it's where we all need to be able to, one, say what needs to be said and be honest and just speak what we feel, but also to be able to receive that with grace.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what transparency will bring us to.
Yeah.
So we're going to be reading each other's minds. We already are, but we just
Yeah.
haven't given it the credence that it deserves because of the programming we've had.
Mm.
But and I can say too, this is again polarities. This is one of the things being with Morgan
Mm.
has done for me, is to be able to hear that.
Mm.
You know, uh, so that's been a big uh, that's been a big factor for me.
Mm.
Um, I think there's a difference um, because, and again, um, this gets back to getting past. This gets back to the Antoinette quotient. This gets back to, uh, you know, the truth frequency. We're all jaded, and we're coming out of that. So we're not going to express ourselves in perfect alignment and honesty. I don't care who we are. None of us are
Mm.
walking on water, but we will be soon. So, we just got to remember that. So for me, the kind of the barometer is one or the other starting to go into an explanation. Some might call that defense. So I believe, yes, to be direct, it's kind of like making the post. You make the post, nobody comment on the post, go make your own post. So if there's an explanation that starts to occur, then we're running into the old loops and the old patterns, and it becomes a debate rather than, hey, this is what I'm seeing. Maybe everything, I guess it would be prefaced with, hey, look, this is what I'm seeing.
Mm.
Uh, take it or leave it. No
Mm.
attachment and no charge, right? And received, no attachment, no charge. Thank you. But if the minute it becomes, I've got to explain myself, uh, you can say that that's healthy. Uh, I don't think so. I think that I respect everybody's reality, which is everybody's truth.
Mm.
I agree there's only one truth. We can't understand how all these truths can be the same, but they are.
Mm.
And so it's a good it's a good thing to have a conversation with someone who brings that up, because that tells me that we're headed the right direction.
Mm.
And you know, I remember I was told, and I've told this a few times. I was told 10 years ago when I was on the streets, and I was waking up those first 2 years, and I was homeless, and I walked all the time, had this constant communion, and I remember having one of the biggest, to this day, one of the biggest lifts I ever got. And this was in the middle of the shit, right? Like you're just 2 o'clock in the morning. You're like, what the hell are you doing? You're 50 years old. You're da. And I heard, hey, listen, just understand that the whole world is going to know everything you ever did in your life. And I went, oh my God, please no. And then I heard, but it's going to be the same for everybody. And I got it at that moment. I went,
Mm.
wow. So everybody's embarrassments, everybody's secrets and lies, everybody's horrors of being divulged are all going to be on the table. And guess what? It's going to be like a shot. You don't want to
Mm.
take a shot as a kid, but the minute it's done, it's over. And like, oh wow, that's
Yeah.
it. The fear of the shot coming at you is what we're dealing with. So I always talk about, I even wrote that today when I shouldn't have been engaging. And I said, you know, we're all good. We can break these veils down by showing our ass. And I'm going to use my soul as a battering ram to break
Yeah.
down the veils. Because once somebody does it, then I think it'll just start to happen. Once you
Yeah.
realize that, hey, it happened to him. So does that mean Todd's going to tell his story in the grimiest, greasiest parts, things that only Morgan knows? I don't know.
Mm.
But I guess when the time comes, I'll make that choice. But I see it like that. I don't know if it
Mm.
has to be that literal, but I feel like that, that's that whole Antoinette thing you're talking about. to be able to have a conversation that, I was strung out on drugs doing things that would blow people's minds
Mm.
at 50 years old. Uh, Psychotic, you know, uh, neurotic on steroids. I mean, just reckless, fearless, all these things that don't even go together. I feel like that's the type of frequency that will break this thing open when we all realize that we all have to wipe our butts and we put our socks on the same way,
Yeah. And it got you here.
Mm-hmm.
So like it just is, right? Like it doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I wrote a little meme today once I got balanced, which is we all have huge etheric ovaries and balls to even show up here.
Yeah.
Now, let's tap into that power now. And then the rest of it went on. But to me, that's all I need. We jumped down the chute and we came down here. And dude, well, we've had a lot of people on the show that have that type of intel. And they will tell you that there were billions and billions of souls right now lined up to come here.
Yeah.
That want to come into this playground. But I'll bet you that when it was put before us all, it wasn't like that.
Mm.
I'll bet you that it was like, this is what it's going to be like. Who wants to go?
Yeah.
And everyone's sitting on their hands because they don't want to raise it, But yeah, I think that if we can keep that in mind, and I actually feel like that with what's happening, that the memories, you can call it code or whatever, are coming back. These things are opening up in us,
Yeah.
this knowing or of what we are and again, in a way that maybe the human's not going to know what's going on. Like a lot of people talked about downloads lately where they're like, God, they're coming so fast. I don't know what it was. Well, you're not going to know what it was. So just surrender to it.
Yeah. Well, I guess there's things there that we're not capable of fully understanding in this incarnation.
Yeah, especially now. It's like, it's almost like the more you think, the more you screw yourself.
Yeah.
You
It's
know,
true.
the imagination is our greatest strength, but it's our greatest weakness too. It can cripple us. It can cripple us into a psychosis and a neurosis of old patterns that we worked so hard to get past.
Yeah.
It really is. Somebody was on the other day. They talked about, I don't know if it was Antoinette or somebody, right? It was the lady after her to use the word surrenderance. And I said, oh, that's an, she goes, no, we are that. And I was like, oh yeah, like more of a noun. Just like let it breathe through you, let it in, let it out, let it in, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whatever's happening, it looks like we're headed for, we're in it. But
oh yeah, well and truly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But too, this thing in Australia, right? Like I saw a video yesterday. And again, I violated this new understanding I have, which is don't watch a bunch of videos right before you go to bed. That's like, that's like coming off a roller coaster and then trying to go to bed, right? I mean,
Yeah.
But I saw this one and it was very concerning. The guy handled it real well. He was an Aussie, and I think he said he was actually an immigrant, so he must have been British or something. I don't know, but anyway, he was on the street corner holding an Aussie flag. Did you see that one? He's just holding the flag. He's there for 2 minutes, and the cops come up to him and say, "You got to go." He says, "What do I got to go for?" He's literally just standing there. Now they're obviously doing some type of, but that's all he was doing. And they said, because you're going to create a disturbance. He said, I'm holding the Aussie flag and I'm going to create it. And then they start pushing him and doing the whole thing, right? And I thought, wow, that's pretty distorted. But I've felt like for a while that you guys are kind of like this, the epicenter like the
Mm,
the the flashpoint.
mm,
And I feel like that because you got this whole, and you would know this better than we were. I'm just giving you my impression as a non-Aussie. Is that I think much of the world too is thought of Australia as one of the coolest places you could ever go.
mm,
It's big, it's not super crowded. There's all kinds of natural things happening. It has like this vibration, this frequency of freedom and
mm.
chill, and then come to find out, as Morgan goes back over there, everything is not what it seemed. All the guns
Right.
were taken away, and I'm speaking that from an energetic standpoint.
Mm,
Uh, these obtruse violations of personal space that are just like, whoa, knocking
yeah.
on doors, taking pregnant women to jail. But like at the same time, I can see where those people would have the biggest pushback when that day comes, which will probably light
Yeah.
this world up.
Yeah.
What are your
Yeah. A
thoughts?
breaking point.
What are your thoughts?
Well, you know what? My impression of our own nation was the same as yours up until September last year. Like, because I got arrested under the rules for the thing.
Really?
Um,
You can say
simply,
it on this channel. I don't care.
I attended a peaceful protest in September last year, thinking that I actually advised. A guy said to me, he said, "I don't know if I can bring my family. I want to bring my kids." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's Australia. You'll be right. Bring your kids to the protest." Anyway, it was next to a stadium that was playing a football match with thousands of people in there. We had about 2,000 people at the peaceful rally, and the police came in with a military style operation. They threw every resource they could manage at it and tried to arrest everyone, including myself. I ended up getting arrested for not following a move on direction because I didn't believe it was lawful, and sort of roughed up quite a bit and all of
Wow.
that. But in saying that, the process that I went through over the last 12 months has been so beneficial. Unbelievable to see things for what they were,
Mm-hmm.
and then go through a process of having my liberty taken, like being grabbed by two large officers, thrown around, one who tried to throw a punch at me, and feeling the least sovereign that you can feel, and then going through all the emotions associated with that, because you do go through there's almost a mourning phase, because when you think you live in a liberal democracy and then you find out, oh my goodness, I don't, you go through the whole, it's like a loss, it's mourning, it's all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And but then to come out the other side and start to understand what real sovereignty is and have no fear of these people despite what they can and can't do, is so powerful. And even to the point that I received $1,000 fine that day, and I had to date I haven't paid that fine, and they threatened about 6 weeks ago to take my license from me, my driver's license, so I wouldn't be able to drive a car, which I need for work and things like that. To date, they have not done that. They have not followed through with it. And I've learnt how to, things like playing the system against itself. So that's basically what I've done to draw the fine out so far. And it turns out the fines aren't worth the paper they're written on. And I've started to learn a lot about the system here, and how it basically operates illegally. And the silly thing is that now when I get a parking ticket, I don't have to pay it because I know how to get out of them. Things
Mm-hmm.
like that. That moment was a catalyst for me beginning to extract myself from the system, realize that I was getting manipulated and that others are getting manipulated, and then learn how to deal with these things when they come my way. So it's been, what was relatively empowering has been the single most empowering thing that's ever happened.
Yeah, you went from believing you knew what sovereignty was to beginning to find your sovereignty, right?
Absolutely.
And that sovereignty thing is a personal thing.
Yeah.
And I love your story too, because we know that this entire realm that we all, from a higher perspective, had a hand in creating,
Mm.
Uh, it's all been based on the power of suggestion. That's it. Go stand in that line, and
Yep.
and you don't even ask. You just do it.
Yeah.
So even this, I think for me, the biggest standout uh, in all of this in the past year and a half has been the word mandate. Like over here, I just read an article. Uh, Joe Biden, which is a joke. I would love to do I would love to do a poll in Soulogy, 100,000 plus people, and just say, hey, how many of you guys actually voted for this guy? Now, and this is
Mm.
not a political question. I'm
Mm.
trying to find out because everywhere I look, when he has a crowd, there's 6 people clapping. Or occasionally you'll see on social media, everyone's saying, fuck Biden, fuck Joe Biden, fuck, and he's going down the road and there's a whole band of people. Like something's wrong there. Again, the
Yep.
suggestion that this is something that it's not, or I'm sorry, that this is something and beneath it, it's not. But my point is
Mm.
the word mandate. So mandate is not a law. I just saw an article and it's been going on a while. And he says he's mandating in the private sector that you have to have a vaccine.
Yep.
Well, that's not a law.
Mm.
That's not a law. That's a suggestion.
Mm.
That's got a big wrapping on it and a big bow that says President of the United States or some authority.
Mm.
So it's going to be interesting. I actually feel like it's all going to move very quickly, and I don't feel like it's going to be massive necessarily. It's going to happen here.
Mm.
It's going to happen when energetically people say, I've had enough.
Mm.
Now, in between, there's going to be a lot of fluctuations, a lot of fits and spurts. It's going to affect everything in our lives because it's disruptive. But
Mm.
I feel like we're this close
Yeah.
to what's been written about, 2,000 years of the golden age or 1,000 years of peace or whatever these sacred texts talk about. And again, that's metaphoric, but I feel like we're this close.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're accelerating things rapidly, but I still see, on the literal sense, that I know there's other hot spots, but Australia just seems to be, to me,
Yeah.
the most pivotal place
Yeah.
because it's so blatant and
Mm.
so overt and so ridiculous
Mm.
that you can see it in some of these videos. These, especially, I see women.
Mm.
I saw a woman stand down 5 police officers the other day
Yeah.
on the
Yep.
streets. You
Yep.
ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Mm.
I know we've all had our experiences. Some haven't been, they're not all the same, but there was always this grandmother or this mother or this aunt or this maternal force in our life that when they start pointing their finger at you, you don't do anything. I don't care if you
Listen.
are the 6'5", 300 pounds, built like a tree. I don't care who you are. You're going to say, okay, I
Yep.
got you.
Yep. And
So
I feel like that's the way it should be.
absolutely.
And that maybe that's why we're here, isn't it? Because we stopped doing that.
Yeah.
You
True.
know,
Yeah.
it's I think I mentioned this last time, like I had a conversation with a indigenous someone from one of the indigenous American tribes, and she was talking about how they used to have the grandmothers circle who would instruct the men on what to do,
That's right.
and how to proceed. And I mean, to me, where I'm at, that just makes such sense. Like, I
That's
feel
right.
like that. Did I actually see you did? I don't know. Did you do something to do with a grandmother's circle? Some sort of bring anything together? I saw something like that get put together somewhere.
Well, I didn't do it. There was a
No.
Thousand Goddess gathering.
Yeah.
That was a couple of years ago that Mayor Cromwell does. I went and
Yeah.
covered
Okay.
it 3 years ago. But
Yeah.
no, I absolutely, from a metaphoric, trying to understand something from a metaphoric standpoint, God's a woman.
Yeah.
I mean, something birthed something. When the first, let's say the first soul or the first cell or whatever you want to call it, split, Something birthed that, you
Mm.
know? And so who was on the other day? Oh, it was Ty Hudnall from Sedona, a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And he's very well versed in an African, I don't know the name of it, Toltec thing.
Yeah.
And he's very, very well versed, very, very knowledgeable, and very humble and very egoless. But he refers to that space, and I'll just give you an idea. If you look at
Mm.
the atom is what, 99.7% empty space.
Mm.
And then of course everything, you extrapolate everything from that. That empty space is the mother. That's what he
Mm.
calls it. And to me, that doesn't, because we get caught up in the literal semantics of it, everything. But yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
Does that mean that every woman on the face of the earth we need to bow down to? No, that's not what I'm
No.
saying. But we
No.
definitely need to hand the baton to them,
Yeah.
because none of us are walking on water, but let's give it a shot. And that could be a feminine energy in a masculine body even. But
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say is it's more of a way of life, and we
Yeah.
know that the feminine energy flows uh,
Mm.
unimpeded, and that the masculines are very straight lines kind of thing,
Mm.
the constructor, so it's not that you take one out, it's just that if there's an imbalance, how are you going to bring it back into balance? Well, one's going to have to give up and one's going to have to
Yeah.
to to be expanded. So but yeah, I guess that's
I feel really strongly in agreement with what you say there. I really, really do. And I felt that for a long time. Like I mean, I read a book called Womb Awakening, and I can't remember the authors, but you start to see how manipulated everything has been, even religious symbology, how manipulated it was when it was very much focused on that womb area and the birthing of things and that sort of stuff. Like I'm not like I say, I'm not very intellectual, so I'm not going to do that book any justice whatsoever. But it was a pretty profound read and very eye-opening.
yeah, I follow Robert Sepper,
Yeah.
Sepher, Atlantean Gardens, and he's made hundreds of excellent video productions, anthropologists, etymologists, and just basically researcher. And one of the things that you'll pick up on his productions that get into that aspect of our history, which has not been put out there, by the way,
Mm.
which is why he gets censored a lot and stuff. But is that if you go back and trace these the more ancient religions, they're all goddess based.
Mm.
They're goddess
Yeah.
based religions,
Yeah.
and so somewhere along the line, Egypt,
Mm.
would probably be the last one. They got stomped out. A lot of people don't know that there was, and I don't remember the exact number, there was a boatload of female pharaohs,
Mm.
but you don't hear about it,
No.
you know.
No. It's
And
no
then I think
accident.
even if you look at those who are tapped into the galactic, which I can't speak in terms that many people can, but even if you look at the Aborigines or the Dogon tribe or
Yeah.
the natives, it's the Seven Sisters. What does that tell you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
What does
Yeah,
that say?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
So,
my wife's Indigenous Australian,
oh yeah,
and her grandmother, and I remember back in the early days before I was, more aware, I used to find it bizarre that her grandmother everyone looked at her grandmother as the head of the family. It wasn't her grandfather. It was her grandmother who was held in reverence.
yeah, that makes sense. When
Yeah.
I first, excuse me, when I first woke up, uh, my grandmother, who had transitioned, was the first interaction I had with a soul that had been disincarnated,
Yeah.
or that had transitioned. I don't know if that disincarnated is the right word, but so I had a series of experiences with her, and it was funny because her husband had been really the biggest masculine influence on my life since I was a little kid. things that he said to me, I would always remember, and you got to work hard and just different things. And he was this huge, like Picasso, this big, larger than life kind of guy, right?
Mm.
And but it was interesting because one night I was laying in bed and they was like this whole group came to me, and I knew it was like ancestors. Like I recognized my grandfather, and I recognized obviously my grandmother and my uncle and stuff. But the interesting thing was she was leading the pack.
Wow.
She was the one in the front,
Mm.
right? And she was delivering the message. And then even in retrospect, because he passed away, she lived another 15 or 20 years. Every day that went by, and this was a huge Mexican American family. And we're talking like 30, 40, 50, there was a lot. That she was the rock.
Yeah.
Like when she left, this family was not the same and never would be. No one. There was no one to take her place.
Yeah.
So then to me that speaks to this empty space that my friend was talking about, because it's constant. Doesn't need attention. It's just there. And it took one, proverbially speaking, took one for the team.
Yeah.
But everything
Wow.
balances out, and now here we go. So
yeah, absolutely.
So it's an interesting proposition what we put ourselves into. But I really feel like we're in it now, especially this the 10-10, 10-11, 10-12. I'm not a big, but it sure felt like something ended, something started, and based on everything I'm seeing, and that silent, quiet minority, which is really maybe a majority in these communities.
Yep.
That you don't see on screen, that you don't see real, they're just not real demonstrative. They're showing me that they're that space in between, and most of them are women. As well. Which is,
no, there's plenty of them. There's plenty of them. And despite, I'll say one thing for Australia, despite whatever numbers and statistics they want to throw at you, they're wrong. We're getting lied to, like they want to make out.
That's right. This is the thing too, is the level of, even in the light worker communities, like that whole Q thing. I saw one yesterday. I saw one 2 days. I saw one yesterday that was written 3 days before by a prominent YouTube. It was not written. It was a video. The next 48 hours, it's all going to happen. People are going to get arrested, and so whether it's that or whether it's something coming down from the CDC or the Australian government or whatever, like, why would you believe these statistics? Why would you believe this information from that which is lied to you from day one? I mean, so it's like we're constantly being pushed back to ourselves.
Yeah.
And many people are experiencing that on an individual basis in their personal lives, which is good. It's a healthy thing.
Absolutely. And that's the key. So like this savior complex, we've had, like here in New South Wales, we had a change of leader of our state government, and everyone got excited because they thought the new guy was going to reverse a lot of the rules put in place and stuff like that. Anyway, he didn't. He did the opposite of what he was expected to do.
Is that right?
But it has to be that way, right? Because if we get a savior tomorrow, let's say someone gets into the highest office in every country, turns everything upside down, says we're not doing this anymore, da 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 da. We're not where we need to be for enough people to wake up to what's going on. Like I feel like they need to. So like I resonate with the idea of information release, that we see someone get hold of numbers that the government's been giving us and go, wait, they've been lying to us. And then they start to clue on. But I don't think it's going to be one particular person or a particular group that comes into power and does it, because we have to let go of that other. There's no savior.
No, it's going to be the individual
Yeah.
And that's why I say the whole world runs off of me. It
Mm.
really does.
Yeah.
Beginning with my life, my relationships, my what we might call the closest circle. It really does.
Yeah.
It could very well be 7.8 billion different Earths happening here, or
Mm.
7.8 different universes. But it's not going to come from refacing or remodeling this pyramid that
Yeah.
we're contained with it. It's
Yeah.
not. Now, does that mean you're going to go have overthrow of governments? Yes, I think it does. I think
Mm.
it does, but I think it could be in natural disasters. It could be that the moment, and it may have already happened. It could be, let's say, Nick is in his garden, and he hits a point of the 100th percentile he hits his head at the ceiling of the human experience,
Mm.
and his soul transcends into that, whatever that conceptual 2,000 years of the golden age and peace.
Yeah.
Yet in his body, there's still the visual of Nick running around. You know what I mean? Who knows?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I really believe there's no other way than it to be the individual.
Yeah.
And again, this is something I've been focused on a lot lately, which is you present something to me. I take it in. I form an opinion. We'll just use that word. I form an opinion based on the patterns of my existence. Now I'm going to spit out my perception. That's our reality.
Mm.
So now I'm taking it in and going, okay, wait a minute. I had this happen on shows. Even this past week, I'm going, okay, remember you're talking to divinity. I'm telling myself in my head, don't judge, don't let the ego come in. I'm literally coaching myself, and it's doable. And so that means that what I experience and what I put out, even in the real time, to our point earlier, you end up having an expanding experience that you're not like this one I was telling you the other day about the one that came in and the metrics were there, and I still don't align with that frequency, but I align with the experience, because in my head I didn't interrupt. I just let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go. And in my head, I'm feeding myself, this is divinity. This is pure intention. This is heart. This is service, and I'm not judging. You know what I mean? So for that, like you were saying earlier, I'm grateful to have had that experience. But it certainly feels like the capability of Todd, and I can only speak for myself, but certainly what I observe in others is a part of it. It's more doable now. Like, I'm only human doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? Like, and I think the pressure that's coming from like what you guys are experiencing over there is lending itself to that personal self-reliance, responsible co-creation element that we all represent, that we all truly are.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Yep.
far out, man.
Spot on.
It's an hour and a half, and that's cool.
Yeah. Lucky.
I'm digging it. I really enjoy talking to you. I love you, man. I think you're
Likewise, Todd, obviously.
Somebody mentioned Franco. Yeah, I think he is. I heard he was. Kimberly told me he is feeling a little bit better. I just want to let y'all know. Still got some serious complications, but that's another thing too, Nick. I see a lot of people, warriors, warrioresses, going through a lot, including Franco and Kimberly. I know that the other side of that is very close, and that these people are going to be absolutely just powerhouses.
Yeah.
To have gone through these transformations that are physical, emotional, mental, different for different people, and there's a lot of people that no one know their names like they know Franco that are doing it. So
Yep. And I know quite a few of them.
yeah,
And they're those people you're talking about.
that's right. And that you can't I don't care what the Australian government does. I don't care how many military jackboots you got lined up in their uniform. I don't care. You're not going to stop. That's the space in between materializing and manifesting uh, in this realm, which, as I understand it, is a first. You know, to be able to actually physicalize those things that we know and don't know of ourselves that are non-physical, so to speak.
Mm.
That these people are, like we all are, transformers. But yeah, I see what's happening with him and Kimberly and those that you're talking about. This is about to burst the dam wide open.
Yeah.
So, you
Yep.
know,
There's always something better on the other side too, isn't there?
yeah,
No
yeah.
matter what.
Yeah, we'll have to do this again sometime.
100%.
All right, brother. Best to you and your
Beautiful.
family. Yeah, best to you and your
Likewise.
family, and enjoy your gardening. And I love you, man. And I
Likewise.
will look for you. Well, how often is your podcast? 2, twice?
You know what? We flow like water, Todd.
Oh, I
I
got you.
don't like to plan anymore. Normally we do
Good.
something. So next Saturday night, probably. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I'm just doing whatever.
There you go. All right,
Yeah.
brother. Take care.
Beautiful.
And
Thank you.
we'll be back tomorrow with Judith Kuzel from South Africa. All right. Take care, everybody. I'll see you later.